Coronavirus is changing the world we live in. The Pi News is conducting a series of interviews with professionals in the international education industry to see how their organisations are being affected. In this episode, we look at the experiences of students who have been repatriated because of coronavirus. The Pi spoke with student group leaders and industry professionals who have been dealing with the fallout of repatriation. Kostas Giannidis is president of the Erasmus Student Network. Jennifer Clinton is president and CEO of Cultural Vistas, a non-profit organisation that facilitates internships and professional exchange programs. Gohar Hovhannisyan is vice president of the European Students' Union. And Simon Hurd is deputy master of Haileybury, a boarding school based in the UK. The Pi asked them about the challenges currently faced by students who have been repatriated.
Yeah, when the coronavirus actually hit Europe, there were thousands of international students abroad. So if you consider that every year there are around 350,000 students taking part of the Erasmus, so this is a big number. Currently, we don't have data to show us concrete examples of how many students they were asked to go back. But ESN is running a survey for the past days, and we have collected already 10,000 answers, where we can see that 36% of international students, they were asked to go home. That was a very big issue because traveling, it was really difficult for them. For example, some countries, they were closing the borders. Some airlines, they were canceling their flights, and therefore it was really difficult for international students to go back home. We know cases where the students actually are still stuck in their host country, so they don't have the chance to go back home because of different reasons.
As countries started to close their borders and airline companies started to stop flights and reduce flights, it was a lot of the parents contacted us to say, can we bring our kids home? Not as much then that they were afraid about the impact of coronavirus medically, but just that they were concerned that their kids weren't going to be able to get home and that the flights would stop and borders would close.
Often when students go to a foreign country, they rent an apartment and they obviously sign a contract for it, which has certain time periods of, I don't know, announcing about leave, etc. So now students face a lot of issues with that because their landlords are just telling them that, yeah, like you have a contract, so you need to pay this amount until your contract will expire. And we see that there is not really any support for students to handle these issues.
We have seen cases in some countries where the universities, they evacuated the dormitories and they asked the local students to go back to their home, to their parents' house, for example. But for the international students, this is impossible. They have to travel back to their countries. And as I said before, in some cases, it's completely impossible to take a flight and go back to your country. So now we have to face this challenge where international students, in very, very rare cases, I don't want to generalize it, but in some cases, students they don't have an accommodation because the university is evacuating the accommodation, so basically they are homeless.
And I think there's definitely mixed emotion that ranges from incredible disappointment to a level of feeling supported, or that it's the right thing to do to kind of go back home and be with friends and family in a more familiar environment.
It's causing a lot of anxiety for students, just because imagine like you had like your plan for your life for at least this upcoming year, that you're a student, you're going to study in this nice country that you finally managed to get to, and then you're being repatriated back home with no real with not even like real understanding of what you can do back home.
A few years ago, we engaged with a virtual mental health partner called Talkspace that provides online counseling to participants that is, accessible anytime, and has been a really tremendous resource for them. And we continue to let our participants know that that's an option for them.
What we see our duty is to make sure that we are a constant for these peoples, even remotely, even from abroad in lots of different countries. And it's about giving them opportunities, sort of encouraging them, nudging them to do this. Have you thought about doing this? Or have a look at this really interesting article, or have a go at this Pilates class.
It's positive in the sense that it's safer for the students in some cases. So it's safer to go back home instead of living in a country abroad in the middle of this pandemic. In that sense, yes, it's positive that they managed to go back.
The ability to adapt in uncertain times is critical, and that will, I think, position people going forward to be successful in this time of uncertainty and the ongoing time of uncertainty that we'll be facing. So, I think as a community, it's important that we remind ourselves that's what we're all about, and how can we help those that in our community really see and reflect upon how they have been developing these skills, and whether they like it or not, they're going to come out of this a much stronger person.
Internationally, so we're setting up through our platform that stories from abroad as well, so pupils that have good pictures or good stories. So actually there's a lot of opportunity to spread humour and interest and the cultural element of it as well, which is really, really interesting. And I think it's just generally brought everyone together in a slightly ironic way, given that everyone's now further apart.